York County, we have York City Police Commissioner back again, Osborne Robinson III, and Northern Regional Police Chief Dave Lash. Good morning, fellas. How are you doing this morning? Great to have you aboard.
Morning, Gary. Morning, Gary. It's great to be here.
Well, if you guys get on here again, we're going to have to give you your own show soon. So maybe it'd be we call it the triumvirate or something like that. I don't know. Lots have happened here in the past week since we last talked. And one of the things that we saw, the city council in Minneapolis, Minnesota, deciding, at least for the moment, to disband their police force. And, we've seen a lot of talk in the country about defunding police, although I've not seen responsible leaders anywhere locally or otherwise who have said that's a good idea. I wanted to get your take this morning on that. Dave, we'll start with you today on that one.
Go ahead, Dave Lash.
Oh.
I was going to go Dave Sunday, but Dave Lash is fine too. Go ahead, Dave.
No, Gary, yeah. No, I appreciate that. No, it certainly has been a long week. It's been a week of basically, it feels like it's been a year in some ways. But we view this, we were just sitting here talking before the show started, and, I think that at this point when you're dealing with so many things going on, the right thing to do is to look forward and say, what can we do moving forward to make the community better, to make policing better, and to just generally do a better job across the board societally. And so with that being said, one of the things, and I would like to pass this to Chief Lash to start, just because we were just discussing a certain part of this, I think would be a great way to frame the conversation. So if you don't mind, Chief Lash, could you go ahead and lay the foundation for us?
Sure. I think part of this is, the conversation that's going on between defunding, disbanding, and abolishment. I think that's what needs to be ironed out here. And I think that, what if we're going to defund the police, where do we push that money to? Where does that money get used? And
right.
It sounds like they're pushing it towards social services. But we've been police departments over the last 10 years, 15 years. We've been forced to do a lot of extra work, mandated work that's not funded. So when they abolished the mental health facilities in the state and put these people back into society, that put an extra layer on. The police officers then became mental health workers at the same time. So there's been a lot of movement over the years to defund things or abolish things that just haven't quite worked out.
And Gary, this is Dave Sunday, if I may. What we've noticed over time is that there's a lot of ways in which we as a society have not given police the tools to do the job that is expected of them by society now. And what I mean by that is, and I am by no means an expert in the history of policing with regard to how money was spent, but what I have seen, even in, I'll say, the last 10 years, is that there has been a drastic shift with regard to what is expected. Your police have become mental health workers. They've become domestic violence counselors. They've become drug addiction counselors. Just 5 years ago, we've asked the police to carry naloxone, and that's voluntary. We've talked about that before. People think that that's mandatory. It's voluntary. And the police in York County embraced it. They not only embraced it, but law enforcement in York County by themselves have saved over 800 lives in the last 5 years from using naloxone for people that are overdosing. And the only reason I'm saying that is because what we have done is we have continuously put additional tasks on the police that traditionally was not part of their role. And at the same time, in adding all those tasks, we have not added the tools and the training to be able to keep up with societal expectations. And I think that that's an important thing that people need to understand. They need to sit down and say, what do police actually do every day? What is required of them? I think that's an important starting point in this entire conversation.
And I think that it's not just what is it that we do, but what is it that we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more things that you add in terms of responsibilities, the less we are going to be able to become super proficient in all of those different areas. The bottom line is the way our minds work, the way that that people work in terms of muscle memory. The more you are involved in specific tasks, the better you're able to develop those areas. But when you keep adding different areas of responsibilities, then you're also taking a chance at reducing the ability to really enhance that particular skills. And then let's be real about a couple of things. 80 to 90% of police budgets go to salary. And so if you talk about defunding police departments, then realistically, you're also talking about reducing the number of officers. And
Right.
if you reduce the number of officers, you also have to talk about reducing the services that officers deliver to the community. And so what's the plan in addressing that void?
Dave Sunday, Osborne Robinson III, and Dave Lash here on WSBA. Commissioner Robinson, I remember we were talking last week, and you were talking about, being a new police commissioner here in New York, coming in and making some changes.
The reality is that police departments already have policies in place. The reality is this isn't the first rodeo when it comes to discussions of disbanding, defunding, or reform. Lyndon Johnson, Commission on Law Enforcement, was in the 1960s. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, directly relating to patterns and practice, came up in 1994. And then 2014, President Obama's Task Force for 21st Century Policing was developed and its pillars. So the reality of it is that, yes, in some cases we make some mistakes. In many cases, we already have policy. And I would even say in most cases we have policy.
Commissioner Osborne Robinson III. We've got Dave Lash, the Northern Regional Police Chief, and Dave Sunday, our District Attorney here of York County, on a forum on law and order and justice in this country. Police Commissioner Osborne Robinson III of York City, also Dave Lash, the Chief of Police for Northern Regional Police, and also Dave Sunday, who is the District Attorney for York County. Guys, I was reading an op-ed this morning by Bobby Simpson of Crispus Attucks, who's done such great work in the city over the years. And he was writing about his look at justice right now and all that is going on. And it was under the title this morning of Bobby Simpson, a leader during York's 1969 uprising, offers advice to young BLM protesters. And one of the points that he makes, and he said it was the most important one, he said, to me, the most important one is this: focus on ourselves and start being accountable for the actions that take place in our neighborhoods. Focus on improving our living conditions in the city by providing safe and affordable housing. How do we in our community hold each other accountable for the safety and cleanliness and the behaviors that are taking place in our own communities and neighborhoods? We have to stop blaming others. That is getting old. If things are going to improve, it is up to each and every one of us. I think sound advice, guys, in our times that we live in. Dave Sunday, your thoughts about that statement?
Well, I think that, Bobby Simpson has a long history and a deep knowledge of this community. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And, I think that so that reminds me of a couple things. There's a couple points I want to make. The first one is, we've done a lot of, I'll say, soul searching as leaders of the different organizations here in law enforcement. We've had very deep conversations, philosophical conversations. And one of the things that has really come to light is an understanding that, we all view the world through a different lens, okay?
Yes.
And we all bring everything that the accumulation of our life, our experiences, our parenting, things that were good, things that were bad. Every single one of us, almost 500,000 people in York County, have all come to this place from somewhere different, okay? And what I mean by that is we all view the world through a different lens. And it's important to remember that, because one thing I noticed, and this happens in everyday life, this happens in people's homes, with their family, with their coworkers, but oftentimes people sort of talk past each other, and they don't take time, they don't spend time to listen and to truly understand what is going on with other people. one of the things that I've said to the prosecutors in this office is we can't control things that happen 1,000 miles away. It is out of our control. If we spend time worrying about it, commenting on it, then we have abdicated our duty to do what we can here in York County to make a difference. And so I challenged everyone in my office to ask themselves, what can they do every day to make this community better? What can they do to make the district attorney's office better? And I think that once people say that, regardless of where they are, where they work, what they do in their lives, I think that will take us to a better place. It's critical, and I've said this repeatedly, that, York County is a special place. I sat back last week and I watched protests with over 1,000 people here in York County and in the city of York in a little block area, and they were peaceful protests. I only saw one or two uniformed officers throughout the entirety of that large peaceful protest. And at the same time, what I also had the privilege of seeing was a tremendously large amount of police officers that worked for days to make sure that they would not be seen, but that they were available in the event something happened. And the reason why that was important to them was because they wanted to protect the constitutional rights of those protesters so that they could exercise their constitutional rights and be heard. And that's the story.
It's interesting at the end of this piece that he wrote, and I'm throwing this to our two chiefs right now, because great points you made, Dave. Bobby said at the end of this op-ed piece today of the Daily Record, he said, when I watch all the media coverage, and I've said this last week, I totally agree with Bobby on this. When I watch all the media coverage that shows the protests and gatherings in downtown, I see a lot of folks who are posturing and trying to outdo each other with fancy rhetoric. That is not what is important and takes away from what you are trying to accomplish, you being the young people getting these rallies going. If you want to be taken seriously, this is not the way to go about it. When the protests are over and the TV coverage ends, we cannot go back to the way it used to be. You as young leaders will need a plan of action to move forward. And I think you were talking about this last week, Commissioner Robinson, in some of your addresses to some of these groups, that, there is an accountability when the quiet time comes, so to speak, and the rallies aren't out there. What are we going to do to make our community better in league with the police as opposed to two separate entities going in two different directions?
And so to just add to that and address the question, but I just want to bring some context to what I believe Bobby was saying. And I don't know him well, but what I believe, it wasn't about an or. So you do this or this is done, but it's about an and. So it wasn't mutually exclusive. It was mutually inclusive.
Absolutely correct.
All the things that are being discussed still need to be addressed, but he was addressing the aspect of personal responsibility. So let's not lose sight that there are things that still need to be done. And yes, there are people that come to protest that have their own agendas. And while that is in fact true, and some of the things that I addressed was putting yourself in position to have a seat at the table. And for me, a seat at the table means you have positioned yourself in education and training that allows you to become a part of the organizations that you feel are oppressing you. Because if you don't become a part of something where you think that there's a problem, you can't as effectively and efficiently make change. And what I want to see is young people young black and brown kids become police officers, firefighters, politicians, lawyers, but not just settle for becoming the folks that operate within those professions, but doing extremely well so that they become influencers in the decision making as well as the holding of accountability for those that they serve. And so it's one thing it's one piece of it to protest and voice the concerns, but then there's the labor. And if you want to make a difference, become a part so that you can have that same passion, that same intensity that you show while you protest inside the organization to be a change agent.
Dave Lash, Northern Regional Police Chief.
Well, I think it comes down to a couple of things. One is transparency and interaction with the community. I know you've visited our website before. We put out every day the calls we handle the day before, the weekend before. We want people to know what our officers are doing. We've deployed over the last year body cameras. All of our uniformed police officers are wearing body cameras. If someone has an issue and they'd like to see that video, they certainly can come to my office, and we'd be happy to show it to them, their interaction with the officer. But the message that we try to get out to our officers through training is, this is the world we live in. We need to do better. We need to be pillars of the community.
Police Commissioner Osborne Robinson III of York City, also Dave Lash, the Chief of Police for Northern Regional Police, and also Dave Sunday, who is the District Attorney for York County. Police Commissioner Osborne Robinson III of York City, also Dave Lash, the Chief of Police for Northern Regional Police, and also Dave Sunday, who is the District Attorney for York County. Our forum on justice and policing. Let's go to Joe in York, who's been waiting patiently. Joe, thank you for your patience. Your turn to make the call here to our two police chiefs and also our District Attorney.
Thank you. I'd like to make a comment and get your feedback, please. I have a simple psychological aspect that should be looked at. It seems that way back when the officers used to be called peace officers, and somewhere around the 80s and 90s they changed the name to law enforcement officers. And ever since then, it seems everything went downhill as far as trust towards the police, and also being trained by the Israeli-type Mossad tactics and all that militant stuff. But I just think that, just the name alone psychologically, law enforcement officer isn't very friendly towards the citizens. It seems like you're always looking for something to get us on, to enforce some little law. When way back when the peace officers were around, they were trusted by the children, by the people, and I think that would make a big change, just changing the name.
Hey, Joe, we'll throw that to Commissioner Robinson to start, and then Police Chief Lash. Commissioner Robinson.
I think there is some relevance to the psychological effect of words. But again, from my perspective, and again, as a black man in America, this isn't about a name. I wasn't always a cop. I am a city kid. I came up in the 70s. And these issues that we're looking at go well beyond the 70s and 80s in terms of the history of policing. So I do think that there can be a psychological impact that names have on policing or any organization, and that while that is a potential thing to look at, to modify, we need to also focus on the realities of why we are where we are.
Dave Lash, your thoughts on that? The semantics of what we say about police officers, law enforcement versus peace officers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think again it comes down to culture in the agencies, in law enforcement in general, in the county. We have an 20 excellent police departments here in the county that do a good job, and I think all of those terms fit. We are peace officers. We are sheepdogs. We are law enforcement officers. A few years ago, one of the big terms that was out there, the mentality that law enforcement leaders have tried to eradicate, is the warrior mentality. I'm not a fan of police officers being dressed as, wearing battle gear while
the
they're
military
on patrol.
Fatigue thing, yeah.
We, at Northern Regional, we still wear traditional dress uniforms. We want to look professional. We want to treat people professionally. We want to be professional, and that's part of our culture. And I would agree, 10, 15 years ago, it took a turn. You started to see police officers wearing more militaristic uniforms, and I don't think that was it was like we were an occupying force, not part of the community.
Yeah.
I think that, that's something that's started to change back, but, not something that we ever adopted at Northern Regional. I don't think it's the right direction to go.
Let's get Larry in Dover with a question, and we just have about 50 seconds left in this segment, and then we'll take the answer afterward. Larry, about 45 seconds, your question.
Yes, my question is, have the individuals seen the video posted by Mark O'Meara, the head of the PBA in New York City? And if they have, what are their reactions and or opinions of it?
And what is the video? If you can give us just a quick synopsis of that.
Well, as he stood up and he supported his fellow officers, of course, as the head of the PBA, and he struck back at the negative media portrayal, okay, and the fact that everybody is calling to defund the police. He emphasized that they had over 375 million interactions with the public last year,
right,
of which most of them were overwhelmingly positive.
Osborne Robinson, the New York City Police Commissioner, Dave Lash, Police Chief of Northern New York Regional Police, and also Dave Sunday. I want to go to you, Dave Lash, very quickly on this one. Having the a guy stand up for the police right now, maybe not in vogue in the moment in some circles, but maybe should be in vogue. The idea that, we do stand up for police, and as our last caller suggested, your thoughts.
Well, I just want to go back. 2019. I think I have some statistics that we had 45,337 documented interactions with citizens in 2019. Wow. That's one of our officers was talking to a citizen, either taking a report, a traffic stop, every 11 and a half minutes last year. Now, that doesn't include conversations at the rudders, follow-ups by detectives, but that's our patrol division, right, actually having direct contact every 11 and a half minutes. And based on that, I'm looking through our annual report from last year. We had investigated 3 conduct complaints out of 45,337 interactions. One of those complaints was founded.
Wow.
So,
I think that gives us an idea. We're right. We're right at the end of the program here. So about 20 seconds left. Go ahead.
I just want to get the point out that the officers are out there. They're doing their best. They're interacting, and this is although we have issues in our society that we need to clean up, we need to continue to make progress in this. By and large, the police officers in this county are doing a good job.
Guys, we appreciate you coming back again this week. It seems like we never are going to get the answers, but to be continued. Maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. Thank you to Osborne Robinson this morning, also to Dave Lash, and also to Dave Sunday. We look forward to another time again very soon, guys.